Welcome to the smooth jazz sounds of Sean Connor. Welcome to Rad Pod and Chill. I'm Heidi
Actually,
Kuda.
it's the chillest part that's going to be all night.
That's good. As chills as gonna get. So yeah, we are Radicalized Truth Survives, but not on Thursday night. Thursday night, we're just at the local bar talking about stuff. Heidi Kuda. I'm here with Jim Stewartson and High Fidelity, and we have a weekly show about disinformation. We're an investigative show about disinformation. Lots of that
And
going
Hi-Fi
around.
gets really high every time and has to mute because he's hacking his brains out.
No, actually,
Oh my God.
actually, my water tried to kill me just now.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
that was your water. Okay.
Yes, my
All right.
water was trying to kill me.
I have no reason to not believe you, but I'll have to go and check the tape.
Can we stop with the conspiracies this early in the hour? So this is a jovial hour where we discuss our previous episode, and we had quite an episode with our friend Alexandar Mihailovic, who wrote a book called Illiberal Vanguard, Populist Elitism in the United States and Russia. And we mined his very sophisticated brain so we could have a conversation about what amounts to the theater of cruelty that we are currently
Whoa.
in.
Heidi, you're going way too fast and you're way too serious. I have something important to talk about.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This is important, people. I think everyone needs to give a shout out to this dear woman here, Sarah Merker. She spent 10 years eating scones at National Trust sites in the UK. And she only had 2 bad ones the entire time. That's dedication right there. This is important. Anyway, I just wanted to share that life was beautiful and scones are wonderful.
I'm so glad, because I do want to have a heartfelt hour, and I love scones too. And
Jim's having a boomer moment, though.
I really love her sweater. Her sweater
is a great
bomb.
sweater.
Her sweater is beautiful.
It feels a
You
little
don't like
cultish, to be
scones?
honest. It just feels like if you're going to spend 10 years of your life like chasing scones around, that just seems weird and like maybe.
Hey.
I'm not trying to be sconophobic or whatever.
Just don't be a sconophobe.
So I think
Scones
that
are delicious.
I think that she's really smart, because probably nobody's really mad at a scone, and she probably has like a gigantic following because of that. So I would hope that there's no like mean scone people out there, but
Scone haters.
Scone haters.
I bet there are. I bet there's
I bet
scone
you
haters.
American biscuit. Damn the scone. Why?
I know. Well, the one thing,
it's all carbs, man. It's good for you.
I dabble in the foodie world because I like to cook. And as you guys know, every Thursday I like to go to my farmer's market. And I've been picking up this mint dill kefir. And I make omelets with it. And I made one for my son, and he will attest that it was the bomb. So yeah, I like foodie stuff.
Wait, did you say kefir?
Kefir. So it's kind of like a yogurty type thing.
It's a yogurt that lacks
commitment. I get the Greek stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a liquid, but it wants to be yogurt, but it's a liquid, but it wants to be yogurt, but it's liquid.
Yeah, with the exact consistency that you don't want anything to actually be in, because it's not liquid or solid, and it's just a weird.
It's kind of yogurt.
Cottage cheese just makes me absolutely insane. I can't.
This is not cottage cheese. I put a few dollops of it in an omelet, and it's insanely delicious. So just wanted to share that. So I'm sure the scone lady can relate to that. When you talk about like mint and dill, flecked kefir, no one gets mad. I don't think. I mean, maybe some vegans might, but I can't, that's not my issue. So yeah,
And thank you for coming to our first segment, Food with Heidi and Fascism.
yes. So, but I do want to talk a bit about the fash because I sent a link to, I don't know what Hi-Fi is doing there. He's got some sort of scientific experiment. We can hear it. Just like,
I'm making tea.
Okay. All right. So can we get back to our
Sorry.
regularly scheduled, show on, dinging fascism? So listen, I sent Ruth Ben-Ghiat a link tonight, because I thought it was really important that she knew what Ron DeSantis was up to in Florida. And of course, it's nothing good. Florida bill requires bloggers who write about governor to register with the state. And as Ruth said, that is fascism. So if
that's straight fascism.
I,
That's
I,
like,
I texted you the link. I don't know if you can pull it up, but I can basically
yeah, I can pull it up. Hold on a
I
second.
can walk people through it. I mean, if you're a blogger, as we are, and you are, commenting on the authoritarian capture occurring in, America, and in particular, in his case, in Florida, and if you don't have anything nice to say about DeSantis, and why would you? You have to register with the state, and on top of everything else he's doing, that to me is utterly terrifying. And Ruth has been consistent. Now recall his previous Secretary of State. I'm sorry, his previous press secretary had to register as a foreign agent. She's now one of his campaign directors. So I think we know what we're looking at there.
Papers, please. Papers, please.
I mean, okay. Literally, that is not constitutional in all the possible ways. So here's the thing, right? Stuff like that is performative until it's not, right?
Yeah, right.
So it would not surprise me at all if something like that passed, and it would immediately go to the courts. And guess what? That shit would go where? All the way up to the top, where there's a bunch of fucking Christo fascists who do not give a shit about anybody's freedom, just took them away from half the goddamn country. So, stuff like that. You used to look at it like, oh, dude, DeSantis being a big weirdo, right? But no,
Yeah.
not so much when the final backstop is fucking cult members and Federalist Society jackoffs.
It's very disturbing, as Hi-Fi would say. He's the new mainstream Satan. I actually did a Q&A with Hi-Fi, which was really quite amazing. But Ruth is not pulling any punches on this guy, and she is not taking it lightly. She says he will destroy our democracy with deadly precision, and Ruth cannot emphasize enough how dangerous he is. And if you're making bloggers in your state register, I would say that's an indication of just how dangerous you are.
Well, I mean, dude has like his own fucking army and stuff. Like he's got like this whole special Florida Guard or something that's his own militia that he gets to. I mean, the dude is just pushing things as hard as he possibly can. And it unfortunately works for him because that state has been so infested and mind fucked that it's a whole reality distortion field, a whole peninsula.
Yeah.
It's a whole distortion field all by itself.
And what's really going on, because we have so many friends in Florida, so we know that this is not popular, and we interview people in Florida, and we know this is not popular, but where it is popular is with the Kremlin cadre, Cash. And that's what he's going for. And he is, as we learned from our friend Nadine Smith of Equality Florida, trying to outflank Trump to the right successfully. And he is getting more, financing, more cash in his financial coffers to make this run than Trump is. And that is why Trump is screaming all the time about DeSantis.
So since this is Rad Pod and Chill, all I did was make a fucking meme about the guy, right? Like,
oh, yes.
Anti-woke crayons.
Oh, you are the meme master. You know what?
Good. You did good. I'm gonna have.
But here's the thing about that.
He actually made a much scarier meme, which I had to veto for our the new mainstream DeSantis. Please don't show it. I asked Hi-Fi, Hi-Fi, could you make a really cool meme for the Q&A I did with you for my Substack? And he's like, why, sure, Heidi. And I'm like, that's too scary. He's a really scary troll. I said, save that for a Why It Matters. That was too scary for me. Hi-Fi, that mind of yours. Back when you were...
I made a scary one for when he was on my podcast.
No fucks allowed. No fucks allowed.
He's like, scary looking.
I think the most terrifying meme any of us have made was that Alexandar Dugin Mike Flynn hybrid you made. That was fucking. That was terrifying.
Part of why it was terrifying, though, is because it was so bloody accurate. That was part of why it was scary.
Blends right in, like they're both. You can see the same, like, sort of broken, mama's boy that did not get the love that he wanted and is now taking it out on the entire fucking planet. You can really see. I mean, psychopaths are psychopaths, man. Like once you start studying them, it becomes easier to tell.
Their trauma becomes our trauma. Tried to explain.
Yeah, I mean, DeSantis is another great example. Classic psychopath. Just like will basically mirror whatever situation he's in, and it just like a fucking heat-seeking missile will just go wherever the money and power is, right? And,
I mean, I read that today about bloggers having to register, and I kind of like had that Timothy Snyder moment where I'm like, better make sure my passport is current, because where do I go? And as Hi-Fi said, I don't go anywhere, because if America falls, there goes the world. So we have to stay here and fight. But let's get to good news. This is Rad Pod and Chill. We're encouraging.
Can we talk about scones? Oh,
we're encouraging those of you who do drink to have a cocktail. I have my ginger tea with vitamin C pack, because that's how I roll. And I always have, coffee and water and, all the libations. But there was a couple things that are really good. Today, I wrote a report on the 4 bankers who are charged. This has never happened before, where the West has actually directly gone after Putin's cash. So this is a pretty big deal. And I gave it a super cheesy headline that I'm kind of proud of. I don't remember what it was, but it was kind of funny. Something about Putin's bankers face the music as cellist hits sour note. Now, we here on the show have known for a long time that one of the things Putin does is he hides his cash through his friends in the various world of offshoring and the opaque shell companies. Well, thanks to the Panama Papers, it became pretty obvious that there were some bankers in Zurich who did not do their due diligence, because cellists don't make tens of millions of dollars, even if you're in the gangster capital of Russia, St. Petersburg, and you're the head of the orchestra there. This particular cellist is also the godfather to one of Putin's kids, which I think is very interesting. But I did an interview with our friend Martin Scheel, who broke it down for everybody. And I think that's really good news. That is a good sign if the West is going to start prosecuting bankers who turn a blind eye to the fact that they are actually allowing money to be moved for Putin, directly impacting Putin. That's a first. That's a big deal. As you know, he's in a war that's going very badly for him and his country. And so having
call me when they get to Deutsche Bank.
Well, what's interesting about it, as Marty says, is like, okay, prosecutors, now let's go after those who are facilitating these transactions, the accountants, the barristers in the UK. But I do feel like this is one of those glimmers of hope. If this has never happened before, then we can't discount that it is important. And that is how I'm viewing it. Jim?
All right, I'm going to go then, because I haven't heard one fucking word, not one peep about the financiers behind January 6th. Not one thing. Yeah. Everybody's like, ooh, classified documents.
Well, there's that one.
January 6th insurrection.
There's the Publix heiress. She comes up periodically. And there's the $250,000.
She funded the whole thing. It was all her.
There's the $250,000 that Trump raised off of the big lie, and there is exposure there. Where did that money go?
$250,000, $250,000. That's all he raised. You mean 250 million?
250 million. Yeah, I'm not a mathematician, so thank you for that. Yeah,
it's just a factor.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Hi-Fi. Glad you're paying attention.
I mean, I saw Ron Watkins on fucking December 21st, 2020, say, hey guys, I'm going to pay people to go to Washington, D.C. Like on the 21st of December, way before. I quote tweeted him. I was like, what the fuck is Ron Watkins doing paying people to go to Washington, D.C. on January 6th? And he deleted it immediately because he's a coward. But he had 10,000 likes on it or something before that. And he was sending people to Clout Hub. And Clout Hub is by this guy named Jeff Brain. And if you went there, it was a bunch of Nazis. They were like, yeehaw, don't tread on me, bitches. And here's my meme with a fucking shotgun and a noose. And it's going to be awesome. I mean, they knew immediately what it was. They knew it was a fucking violent riot that they were going to right off the bat. That's what wild meant. Every single person on planet Earth who was paying attention knew it. So why the fuck didn't the FBI know? Why the fuck didn't the DOJ know?
I know why.
I think we know why. I think we know why.
I'm just saying,
Christopher Wray just played himself.
Why is this motherfucker, Chris Wray, appointed by Trump, who, despite I got dozens of goddamn tips in there, like, bro, what's doing? You guys are about to have a giant pile of Nazis collapse on the Capitol. So why don't you fucking tell people about that or something? Yeah, right. And they did jack shit. They did exactly nothing about it, and we're so surprised. How could we possibly know there was going to be fucking 400,000 Nazis in D.C.? It's
because we fucking ridiculous. Told you, dude.
And now they're trying to whitewash this dipshit Chris Miller all over the place, who's like going on QAnon shows and stuff like, I'm just so dumb. I couldn't have possibly done anything wrong, and I love America.
You were the head of the Pentagon.
How heroic I was on January 6th. It's just fucking killing me.
Could we just do voices all night? This is so fun. Yeah, that was.
How can you be stupid? How can you be stupid and be the head of the motherfucking Pentagon? I'm sorry.
Can we do voices all night? It's so much more fun than the reality of Chris Wray going on the propaganda network. That's completely under. Oh, just kick him out. Kick him out. Kick him out. We're all about peace, love, and harmony.
I kicked troll allowed in the chat, fuckers.
Anyway. Exactly. I kicked one out already.
Did
Me
you?
too.
Did you?
Doug
Yeah,
must be mad. Anyway.
This is
I just have to say, I have done an extraordinary job at pissing a lot of people off this week.
Well done, by the way. I'm impressed.
And it's just a humble brag. I admit it. I feel good about it. There are so many hurt feelings right now in bad Actorville. It's almost heartbreaking to see how desperate and clownish and embarrassing they've gotten. So
have you noticed they can't keep their stories?
That's me reaching across the aisle to my fellow humans.
Yeah.
You know, I know you're working hard, and I know times are tough, and you know, I'm sorry that your feelings are hurt. I really am.
I do believe we've talked a bit about time this week, and I know Jim has a philosophy of time, and so do I. And mine comes from Francis Bacon a la Peter Jukes, that truth is the daughter of time. And eventually, if your business is promoting lies, malinformation, disinformation, sub-truths, whatever you want to call it, eventually that line of work might dry up. So
time is their primary weapon.
Yeah.
Like people get very. I wrote a tweet something like, "Be patient is the most annoying fucking thing you could possibly say to me." No, that's easy. Absolutely not. Why in the fuck should I be patient about this? When my goddamn country and my children's future and my children's future are at risk because of feckless shitheads at the DOJ and the FBI who obviously are compromised at one level or another. I'm done. So don't fucking tell me to be patient. Don't tell me to calm down. Fuck you. It's an emergency.
I will say that slow walking is a dereliction of duty. But as a counter argument, whether we like it or not, you know, truth will always win eventually. You can't keep creating lie after lie after lie without it toppling down. So yes, we need some action now, but also there is a time limit on how long one can lie. Speaking of which,
time. One last thing about time. I apologize. The justice system is so fucking corrupt that it's very simple. If you have money, you can delay things as long as you want. I mean, even Alex fucking Murdaugh murdered his wife and kid like how many fucking years ago, right?
Yeah.
The only reason for that is because he's whatever it was. I don't give a shit, actually, which is a whole other thing. I don't fucking care. But it's been 7 years since the 2016 election when the goddamn Russians stole it from us in the open. And we can't, and we're just like, oh, sorry, we had a Russian asset in the most important counterintelligence position in the goddamn country. Literally. Sorry, oops, we forgot about that part 7 fucking years ago. So our justice system is you can buy it. You can buy it. If you have fucking money, you can buy it. That's wrong. It's unjust. It needs to end. It needs to stop. That's why everybody in fucking jail is poor.
Yeah, that's what I always say. On a good note, I wrote something called "Meat is Murdoch: Fox's History of Lies," because I want to bring people's attention. What happened? I want to bring people's attention to the fact that the story about Fox's Dominion voting systems, you know, the court documents that were filed exposing them as being acutely aware of promoting propaganda and lies on their network. I think it's incredibly important, and I documented it It's not about the big lie and the Dominion court filings, although that's wonderful. That's the fallout. It's that Fox has been lying to the American public for years. That's the far bigger story that needs to be told. And it didn't take me very long to find study after study showing the blood on Fox's hands as related to the pandemic. There's studies that prove that if you watched Fox and you were watching Hannity early on in the pandemic, you had a higher chance of being dead right now, thanks to the network that you watched. And that's just one example. I go, over and over some of the themes. And another thing I thought might be interesting for our viewers. There was 1,100 Benghazi stories on Fox News, which did not deem the January 6th committee hearings important enough to air. Yeah, that's a great quote that you just highlighted from Paul Nyland from our interview with him. He's a reporter based in Kyiv who actually started the first suicide hotline in Ukraine after he realized that in 2014, when Ukraine was initially attacked by Russia, there wasn't any way to deal with the PTSD from the soldiers who had to rise to the occasion to fight back. So he started to, but he also became a reporter, and he's so dead on here. What the U.S. has to do is know your enemy. You have to look at Josh Hawley, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson. Russian media was showing clips of Carlson. And what you have to understand is that if Russia is on your side, you're on the wrong goddamn side. Russia means absolutely no good to the United States of America. Russia is your enemy. It's such a great quote. And you
would think that would be clear, right? You would think that this would not be difficult. But when you consider that Mike Flynn just basically endorsed Josh Hawley for president, then I think you can see why these people are in accord.
Hold on. I got to do something about Josh Hawley. All right. I would like everyone to know that Josh Hawley was recruited at Stanford University by one Mr. Peter Thiel to write for the Stanford Review. 2, I would like everyone to know that Josh Hawley became the Attorney General of Missouri with the help of a $300,000 donation from one Mr. Peter fucking Thiel.
Is this a Peter Thiel moment? Is that what's happening right now? I'm vibing. This might be a Peter Thiel moment. I'm not sure though.
Oh, hi. Thanks for checking in. I'm still a piece of garbage.
You're fucking right, it is. Fuck that dude.
It's Heidi, just a little advice. It's better when he springs it on him. Don't warn him.
Okay.
Because you and I knew it was coming. But
yeah, you guys knew it was coming.
Yeah, we didn't know.
I was like, oh, and then Heidi just comes out
again.
So, hey, more good news Thursday.
You're gonna have to spring it on us one more time, Hi-Fi. Just out of the blue,
just randomly.
We're talking about whatever the fuck.
Well, we'll talk about the lizard. That'll take it back to our viewers from back in the day. So our friend Fred P. Wellman tweeted out something today that I thought was good. George Santos is finally under investigation, according to something.
George Santos is a fucking distraction and a means of laundering fucking money. Fuck that dude.
Nevertheless, as theater craft goes, we got to root them out. So I would like very much to root this one out fast. We have a number of them, and all selling the same thing. Distraction, fear, victimhood. Distraction, fear, victimhood, over and over again on a propaganda loop. Yeah.
Yep. Propaganda loop. Propaganda loop. Propaganda loop. Propaganda loop. I'm fucking tired of propaganda loops, man.
I am too.
It's a loop, right? That's all it is. People get in these fucking loops where they are compelled to go back to this stuff for psychological reasons. They are psychologically compelled to do it. So the best way to make them better and stop behaving like fucking crazy zombie monsters is to take the fucking poison away. It's not complicated. It really isn't. We had Jensenko on. We know about Ruth's mom. I've talked to many people who've gotten out of QAnon. Who've gotten out of these horrible, horrible ideologies. And the main thing is you've got to get them the fuck away from the propaganda that's poisoning their mind. They're going to go through a little withdrawal. It's a little bit like alcohol or whatever. It's going to be like, oh, fuck, where's my cue? Where's my cue? Like somehow they're going to have to, work through those withdrawal symptoms, right? Like,
yeah.
We have to figure out how to reduce the overall level of propaganda. It's that simple. It really is. Like, you take down the level of propaganda and the insanity of the fucking country and the world goes down.
Yeah.
It does. It's that easy.
Yeah.
And there are places where the propaganda lives, like Telegram and Fox and shit like that, where we know people are getting brainwashed all day long, every single day.
Yeah.
Trauma for them and everybody around them. And we're doing jack shit, not telling anybody.
It's very important, just quickly, hi-fi. It's very important that we bring up the shame component, because I think that we don't talk about it enough. We were for a while, and it's been some time, but I was just reminded of it recently. When people realize they've been sucked into these conspiracy theories, and going, they realize they've been duped. It's not like they throw a party and go, oh, I'm back, it's so great. No, many of them feel intense and acute shame. So that's like just something to be on the lookout for when you see someone coming back. Be gentle.
The shame is part of the cognitive dissonance, right? It's part of, when you're brainwashed, when you have undue influence, you're literally in a different world. You are in that alternate reality that has been imposed on you. And when somebody comes in with, it's like all of a sudden you see a fucking evil UFO in the sky and you're like, fuck, right? Because you don't expect that. That's in a different reality from the one that you're in. And it's scary and weird and it's painful, and it's intentionally painful. And part of that pain is shame, right? Because if you confront somebody with their ideology and you say, you know what, that thing that you believe is dumb as fuck. Well, it might be true that it's dumb as fuck. All that does is bring up the shame, the anger, the rage, and it triggers the programming that they have in their head that says anybody who conflicts with my ideology is the enemy, is in the outgroup.
Right.
So you can't fight their ideology. You cannot do it. You can ask them questions. You can help them down the road themselves to find their own way out. You cannot force them. And so it's very important when you're dealing with a loved one or somebody who's suffering from this condition, that you don't try and fight the beliefs that you're disagreeing with.
Yeah.
You have to be a human being first, and you have to give them ways of finding their own way out. It's a delicate thing, but it's possible.
Thank you, Jim. High five. Oh my God, it's so cute.
How the fuck am I gonna follow that up? I mean, Jim's over here. He sounds like I don't even know. He's like being a nice guy and shit, but he's yelling at the same time, which causes confusion. So.
Well, Jim has a lot of PTSD.
I'm giving you cognitive dissonance, bro.
Jim has a lot of PTSD. This show is sweary. This particular hour of our Rad Pod is a bit sweary.
We do swear, yes.
But it is also humorous. So, we can be
it's
a bit
humorous when
too.
you say it's humorous, because that's always funny.
That's pretty funny.
Look how funny we are.
I remember
that is funny, Jim. What, hi-fi?
I remembered what I wanted to say.
What is that?
And what I wanted to say is, we talk a lot about, information war, cognitive warfare, and these are all just strategies and tactics that are being used against us. And in the larger frame of reference, if we look at who's doing these things, if the people who are running the big tech companies that are targeting us for our data and are utilizing that data to weaponize us against each other, which is really what they're doing, to our own detriment, right? In some cases, to people's deaths, right? I mean, how many children has QAnon killed?
Right. I think that's very important. This is not, by the way, the funny part of our show, but I think that's a very important point.
This is a class war, is what this is. It's middle class and poor people and immigrants all fighting, scrabbling for scraps in the dirt, while the billionaires pull strings and fuck with people's minds. And I really think there should be some laws against that. That's all.
Well, when earlier today, Jim was talking about those who are part of the controlled opposition to, get people to continue ensuring that people are a bit confused about QAnon. And one of them that he mentioned was kind of jovial and joking about it. And I remember thinking, how many people have died? Like there have been like families that have died where like a father will kill his children, and his wife over this stuff. So there's really nothing funny about that, but it certainly explains why there's, a lot of money behind the cover up, because, should anybody actually be able to help us get this information that Jim has out to the masses, I would suggest that people like the Mike Flynn's of the world actually get themselves some damn good lawyers, because they too have blood on their hands.
Yeah, so you triggered me. So
sorry.
TED Talk 3, go. Oh, sorry.
It's not fucking funny.
It isn't.
Okay. Your little stories and your running around effectively promoting QAnon instead of doing anything about it is bad enough, but laughing about it when there's millions of people watching you on TV who have lost people, lost loved ones. I mean, not only to propaganda, but to COVID, from the disinformation that gets pushed around by QAnon and its ilk. You're laughing at trauma and death. And that is not only disinformation, it's cruel.
Yeah.
Ooh. It's wrong.
Yeah.
The people who are sitting there thinking, where the fuck is my sister? Where's my mom? Do not think it's funny and don't want you bullshitting them with your little stories, because you don't matter. It's not about you. It's about the people that have been sucked into this goddamn cult because Russia and a bunch of fucking traitors intentionally did that to them. So don't get up there and say, oh, it doesn't really matter who it is, but it's definitely not Mike Flynn, because, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? How do you get on television and do that knowing what you know? I'm not saying names, but Jesus Christ, man. Like, grow the fuck up at minimum, or I don't know what you got to change in your life, but fucking do it, because you're causing harm to people. You're lying to them, and you're hurting them by making light of something that's incredibly serious.
You're appealing to sociopaths, Jim.
Well, but we've seen cracks. We've seen cracks. Some of the people, not that Jim is talking about, but that I watched very early on in the Trump brigade, when it's peeled back and their DMs and texts are showed, there's fear there. They're like, oh, we're part of something that's actually killing people. Like there is an awareness. So you never know when a message might get through. But I think on Jim's point, this would be a very good time to bring up the theater of cruelty soundbite that we have from Alexander.
It might get through, but what matters is if they fucking do anything about it, right?
Well,
and certain people are their entire existence is based on lying. It's just true.
But as I said, that's only good for so long. That is not.
I agree.
That lies do not have a lifetime guarantee. At some point, truth.
It sounds like we're talking about the head of the FBI, but I'm not sure. Anyway, here's the clip.
Very interesting. It's like there's a lot of talk about ideology, but to me, it seems to be about finding ways to control large swaths of people. And on that note, you also mentioned how that plays out in the internet age. I know that's a mouthful, but
yeah, I think that one thing that's really important is this sort of practice of public shaming on the internet that the far right in both countries uses very well. And the justification for that is tactical, but it's also philosophical, because what you're doing is essentially revalidating natural hierarchies. You're sort of saying this person is of no consequence. They're scum. They're trash. It's not enough to disprove their ideas. That's actually kind of boring. They're not interested in that, but they are interested in this kind of theater of cruelty. And so I think I see this all the time, really, looking at the Russian internet, looking at not so much Facebook for Russia, but Vkontakte, and also on really Twitter, which since Elon Musk took over is really, given a sort of a steroid boost to all sorts of, people on the far right, the kind of the congeries of resentment, dissatisfaction, and boiling rage.
Well, there you go.
we get the best fucking guests. Illiberal Vanguard. This book is the shit. Like seriously, that is one hell of a piece of work. And I'm grateful to Alexander for the deep dive that he did, showing the connection.
He said one of my favorite phrases about what like Flynn and these guys are doing, which is shopping store religiosity. Fucking awesome. So there's a much dorkier phrase called syncretism, which is basically the same thing. It's where you collect from a bunch of different ideologies to put it into something more virulent than any of the individual ones. And so, and I just did a big thread about this because Mike Flynn is doing it. But what he does is he uses Christianity as a carrier wave into people's magical thinking part of their brain, right? And people who are devout, who have faith, they have magical thinking. That's what that is. It's not a judgment thing. It's just you're believing in supernatural stuff that isn't necessarily connected to science. And so they will use that and then like grab onto your Jesus, your love of Jesus or whatever, and expand from that into a payload of propaganda and hate. So that's why, all of Mike Flynn's like QAnon events are at churches now, because these are just people in fucking Ohio or wherever, Pennsylvania, who, going to church and all of a sudden just retired generals coming. This is going to be awesome, right? It's all perfectly normal if it's not being run by a guy who's, an expert in psyoping people into civil wars, which is what he is doing, right? So shopping cart religiosity is a kind of a funny term for something that actually, is insanely dangerous and is one of the primary ways that people are being radicalized. That's why Christo-fascism is a big thing. That's why, you see that term, and now all of a sudden you got, Marge and whoever else going, I'm a Christo-fascist. Christo is good. And I mean, it's just
Christian nationalist, right?
Okay.
Christian nationalist.
My bad.
Okay, so here's the thing, though. What I would like to clarify, he's not just inciting people to civil war. He's also, we're in the long, slow starting phase of a religious extremist networked insurgency, a la the Taliban, right? And that's, I mean, he learned this from ISIS. These are things people need to understand. Yeah, for Mia Bloom came on our show and talked about it.
Mia Bloom has written books on.
There was a guy they caught at an airport in Pennsylvania who had a suitcase lined with some sort of powder. I forget if it was firework or gun or some sort of explosive powder and some weird shit going on in his luggage. And when they called his name over the loudspeaker, he turned around and walked the fuck out. You don't do that unless you have bad intentions, my guy. So what's going on there?
I do.
I don't know about that particular thing, but that sounds very suicide bombery or whatever. Except he chickened out.
I do want to point out. I just want to point out that group after group after group that calls themselves Christian groups and Christian organizations have petitioned against General Michael Flynn. They do not want him in their churches. They don't want him in their community. They think that he is a false prophet, and they are warning their congregations against him. So where he ends up going are often the very fringe extremists. So I just want to make sure that we don't discount the fact that there are many Christians throughout America that are decrying this man's tactics.
Sure, there are, but I mean, this thing is deep. I mean, it's not a fringe movement at all, right? There a huge swath of these places, have unfortunately basically fallen. They're no longer places of worship or community centers. They're political terror organizations, right?
Indoctrination centers.
Is what they are. So we were talking about, Hi-Fi brought up, so it sounds like some wannabe bomber or whatever, right? Think about what this cult did during COVID. That was when Trump had those giant ass super spreader rallies, and if you wore a mask, you were treated like some kind of animal.
Yeah.
He created suicide bombers.
We should actually have Herman Cain on the show to talk about that.
We could.
Oh, wait. He went to one of these and he died.
Yes, exactly. And that's the intent. That's the thing. It's cruelty. It's
insane.
So I have a phrase, not to make light of it, but death cult gonna death cult. Yeah. Right?
There you go.
The entire project is to radicalize people into giving up their life. Right? That's the whole project. Because what you need are people willing to go to war. That's the whole goddamn point. That's what Hitler did. He had a cult too. He had a religious cult alongside as a cult. Same goddamn thing. That's where it goes. That's the only purpose of it.
Here's where it goes. Right here.
Right. But I mean, that's a very inefficient way of making suicide bombers, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was.
Well, what Rod of Iron? Hold on. What Rod of Iron Ministries did is they bought up a bunch of land in Texas, and they're building a compound while they wear their billet crowns and worship Jesus with their AR-15s.
Yeah.
So
as Hi-Fi noted, or as Jim noted a few episodes back, you don't need the compounds anymore when you have the internet.
Well,
Hi-Fi reminded me of a great quote yesterday from Hannah Arendt, and I'm trying to find it right now. But it's basically like, people don't want don't want totalitarianism. They have to be sold it through propaganda, and that's where we are at in the moment.
Yeah, they're selling the reality right now. They're doing it in Florida.
The unreality. They're selling the unreality.
Their fake realities. Yeah.
It's also creating the conditions to make propaganda, right?
Mm-hmm.
You create conflicts at Black Lives Matter rallies, right? Intentionally to cause propaganda, right? Look at all the Antifers running around setting stuff on fire. That's the real problem, is all the Antifers, right? Because they're like 3 cars that caught on fire during an entire summer or something,
right.
And so they took pictures of those things and just repeat it over and over and over again. In the meantime, hundreds of thousands of people are just dying all over the fucking place because these asshats are on Twitter and everywhere else going, the vaccine's a bioweapon. Like, these things don't line up in any stretch.
There are actually lawsuits against Fox for just that, from people who lost loved ones. Because
hold on. I need to say something real fast. To Jim's point about riot porn, which is what I call it. To anyone who is on the left, especially anyone who may have sold a company for a whole shitload of money recently in the last few years, I personally would not be out on the street trying to get in fistfights and provoking fucking Nazis, because that's just, what the fuck? All right?
Yeah, look,
don't play their game.
There's
their fucking game.
There's a whole segment of people who like to pretend to be super Antifa, but all they are fucking anarchists. And I'm sorry, but like, getting your yayas off by, LARPing with Proud Boys in the street. There are ways to protest, and I will punch a fucking Nazi if a Nazi comes for anybody I care about, right? But your dumbass, like, super spy, I'm gonna be a Antifa. It's just, what you're doing, so don't.
Well, I just want to remind everybody that the reason January 6th was not more violent and heinous than it was is because people like Jim told people who were on the left and against Trump to stay home. So that left the Trump supporters, who appeared to be in some sort of cult, to only beat up on cops, which is not very law and order of them. And Hi-Fi said something very genius.
Don't try that Antifa shit. To this day, still people out there.
They still do that shit.
Well, unfortunately, it's been effective propaganda. So let's just.
Well, now there's going to be 41,000 hours of, thanks to Speaker McFucknuts, who decided to give.
I think that's his official name.
The entire congressional privacy of all of our lawmakers, right? Like, when do they get there in the morning? Let's check Tucker's fucking tapes. It's absolutely murderous to his colleagues. It's so dangerous, right? How many people are in the fucking basement, at 8 a.m. when it's in session? Oh, there's only 3 or 4. Seems like a good spot. I mean, the amount of just security risk, not to mention the propaganda value, which is exactly what it's for, right? I swear to God, there's going to be everybody in that crowd from, they're going to have like, look, there's Malcolm Nance in the crowd. Or, it's going to be so stupid.
Well, so Two things I want to point out. One is that we do have to be aware of what is effective propaganda. Somebody today asked me why, Jim, you and I tweeted back and forth. I tweeted out an old thread of mine showing that many of the neo-Nazi ops were coming directly from St. Petersburg and from Russia. Some of the leaders of neo-Nazi organizations in America were actually working out of St. Petersburg. It all sounds very familiar. I've done so much report, and somebody's like, why does nobody get it? And I said, and this is something that Keir Giles really drilled home with me, because Russia was effective propaganda. Trump's dismissiveness was actually very effective. But here's some effective propaganda that Hi-Fi said yesterday, which is actually reality. Pro-Trump, pro-Putin. That's the kind of slogans we need. And it's so true. Like, that was just like, yo, whether they know it or not. Absolutely.
Can I just say something about Russian Nazis for a second?
Yes.
So look, there's this whole LARP about how there's all these Nazis in Ukraine, right? Just bullshit. Yes, there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine, like there are neo-Nazis in every other goddamn country in the world. It doesn't have a particularly large population of neo-Nazis at all. But the neo-Nazis that, were there 10 years ago in something called the Azov Battalion, which has a very, very sort of, branching relationship at all to anybody who's there now, they split off from that shit in 2014. Mm-hmm. Like, just missed the whole fucking thing. Guess what, though? Azov Battalion and Atomwaffen and a bunch of other of these neo-Nazi terrorist groups across the world started on a website called Iron March. Iron March is where all of these places got a home, because the founder of the website, it was sort of like 8chan, you could set up your own little Nazi community to create your own little Nazi hate group.
Wow.
And so he kind of built a bunch of these, and at least a dozen major neo-Nazi movements came from this one website, Iron March. Guess what? Iron March was made by a fucking Russian who went to Kremlin spy school in St. Petersburg and Moscow. Literally, the guy who started the website where all of these neo-Nazi movements across the world started was a Kremlin asset. So please give me a fucking break with all your LARPing about, Nazi problems everywhere else. Russia is the one where this shit comes from. They have the Imperial Army or whatever. They have the fucking Wagner, which all it is Nazis. It's literally a Nazi terrorist group, right? And it's Putin's little green men, his little buddies that go around and terrorize people all over the goddamn world. Nazis. They're the Nazis.
Yeah,
so,
well,
I just want to be very clear about anybody who wants to both sides that shit. Go fuck yourself.
It's very interesting seeing the fracturing going on between Prigozhin and Kremlin and generals. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And Rick Wilson, God bless him, had the best tweet about that. He's like, it's going to be really interesting when Putin's gone and suddenly MAGA finds Prigozhin has all the qualities they're looking for. I'm like, dude, wish I'd written it. That's awesome. So had to give a shout out. I would like to give one of the last, right? I'd like to give one of the last words to Hi-Fi, who reminded me of my Hannah Arendt thread. One of the core tactics I always talk about is how one of the greatest advantages of the totalitarian elites of the 20s and 30s was to turn any statement of fact into a question of motive. I'm going to be writing about that tonight again. Unreality, when you can't win on facts, you switch it up to questioning the motive. That is a tactic I see every day in our congressional shit show that's currently happening. But here's what Hi-Fi reminded me of that's very important. Another Hannah Arendt quote: Only the mob and the elite can be attracted by the momentum of totalitarianism itself. The masses have to be won by propaganda. And here is why that matters. Hi-Fi said, that's Rupert Murdoch's job, whether he admits it or not. He is a general in this class war running the Ministry of Propaganda and Enlightenment. And I personally don't believe that's what our First Amendment was written for. So foreign goons like Murdoch could destroy our country. So just wanted to bring that up because I thought it was nothing short of brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Murdoch, by the way, the only reason why he's got dual American citizenship is because of Ronald fucking Reagan, when Ronald Reagan got rid of the Fairness Act in the 80s. That's why we're in this fucking mess, because Ronald Reagan was a piece of shit.
I just want to say that there's a lot of conservatives. There's a lot of
Reagan was a good Republican.
There's a lot of conservatives who are homeless right now, and somehow they have found Betty Dangerous's Substack because they don't know where else to go. And I am very grateful because I want to bring in as many people under my tent as possible. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I used to say that Trumpism was just Reaganism with, or Reaganism was just Trumpism with pomade, taxes and judges, everything else. But, at least Reagan, I don't believe was actually, an asset for the Kremlin. So at least that. Jim's like,
all I'm gonna say on the subject of Ronald Reagan, all I'm gonna say is this: the Violent Femmes have a song called "Old Mother Reagan."
Yeah,
we fucking knew.
Yeah,
the punk kids knew
actually
what Reagan was up to.
Go back to the Ramones. Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. I mean, to me, it's like that's the jam right there. I think that's probably our show.
Probably our show. Because I got one more thing.
What?
I got one more thing that I gotta fucking get out there because it still to this day bugs me. This goes back to 2020, right? And when I first did my Rittenhouse thread and somebody tried to DDoS Give Send Go, you know how Jim was talking about fucking Russian assets and shit and Russian Nazis. Sorry. I'd like to talk about American chaos agents because Jim's thread earlier today brought this up. I don't know if this guy's real or not, but if that's Tim Pool today, good. Because anonymous emails were sent to my employer in 2020 accusing me of being the person DDoSing Give Send Go and accusing me of being a hacker. And they threatened to send Tim fucking Pool after my employer. So anytime I hear that fucking name now, I just want people to know that's what I associate that dickhead with.
Yeah, just never say, don't say it that way. Say Tim Tool, then everything is better.
I don't know. I don't know where to go from there, guys. I'm just glad I'm glad that I got the Ramones in my head right now. Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, kids. If you don't know the song, look it up. It's important.
All right.